Hey there, I'm Jonah Vic of Channel 2 Sports, back with Vic Carucci of the Buffalo News. Bills bye week. They sit at 3-2 after losing to the Bengals 20-16 this past week in Cincinnati. And this was the comeback down to earth game, I think, for the Bills and their fans. What went wrong in Cincy in your mind?
Well, the biggest thing, let's start with offense. They couldn't run the football, and that's been a common problem. And I think all of their offensive problems emanate from there. You don't run the football, and then you can't get a passing game going, and you can't score points. When your defense is taking the ball away from the other team 3 times, even on a day when the opponent is making some big plays, you should still win that ball game. The stats, the analytics all say that that is in your favor. And Cincinnati tried to give them that game. Buffalo didn't have the offense. They didn't get the passing game going. Tyrod Taylor didn't deliver as he should. His depleted core of receivers didn't respond as they should. Losing Charles Clay along the way to a knee injury didn't help matters. But still, if you're in that upper echelon or in between whatever they were and where we thought they were after the Atlanta game, you win a game like that.
And that was a rough game for Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah.
In terms of completion percentage, he threw his first interception since week 1. And he got sacked 6 times. And there were sacks where he had all day to throw in the pocket, and he just didn't get rid of the football, and he went down. But I want to go back to Charles Clay. You alluded to it already. Carted off the field, did not return to the game, went down in the first quarter with a knee injury, had a knee scope Monday morning. He is out indefinitely. What does this do to the Bills' offense? Because we know the stats. He was their #1 pass catcher through the first 4 weeks.
Well, it damages it a great deal because this was the go-to guy, obviously, for Tyrod Taylor. Whatever confidence Tyrod had in throwing the football to make plays when he didn't see other things, Charles Clay was there to do it. Now, I think Nick O'Leary can pick up some slack, and he has shown that multiple times this season. What Nick O'Leary doesn't have is the athleticism of Charles Clay. He's kind of this big, burly dude, a little tightly bound, if you will, just the way he's built. But yes, he's got reliable hands. He runs really good routes. He's just not going to get you a whole lot after the catch. And there's the difference. Charles Clay can take one of those seam routes and take it the distance. He can go up the sideline, beat a DB one-on-one, and take it the distance. They're going to lack that at the tight end position, at least for the time being. It will be interesting to see what else they might do at tight end. Logan Thomas is on the roster, still feeling his way as a guy who just made his first NFL catch last week at Cincinnati. Converted quarterback, but someone who I think as he gets more comfortable with the NFL game could factor into the passing game. And remember, Logan Thomas, Tyrod Taylor were teammates at Virginia Tech.
So with Charles Clay out, the Bills are now down their top tight end, their top receiver in Jordan Matthews, who had a thumb injury in Atlanta. He's expected to miss another 2-3 weeks as well. Who's going to step up in the passing game? You mentioned Nick O'Leary, the tight end, Logan Thomas. Those are both tight ends. But they got to be able to do something on the outside or a slot. Someone's got to step up. Who's it going to be?
Here's the thing, Jonah. So much focus is going to continue to be on what this passing game lacks as long as the running game continues to be stalled, continues to be in mud. And that's what we've seen now for 4 weeks since that Jets game, more or less. And I thought a low point in many ways, even though horrendous stats against Carolina, not much better the following week for LaShawn McCoy. But this game in Cincinnati, where you're making a concerted effort, you were facing the 17th ranked run defense in the league, you had to get something going. I believe that has exacerbated the problems in the passing game. When you aren't running, when you give the opponent no reason to back off, to think that you might threaten them, you're in trouble, even if you had a better core of receivers, and the Bills obviously don't have that. But you asked the question about stepping up. Zay Jones has to be that guy. As the 2nd-round pick, you want pressure. There's a lot on his shoulders, and he hasn't delivered. He has dropped passes more than he's made plays. That's the stamp on him right now. I think that's a psychological barrier he's got to overcome, and I think he's feeling some heat for that. So he's got to get through that. And then Tyrod Taylor, when he has opportunities, as he did in this game, as he did in Carolina, with the ball in his hand and a chance to win the game, your big-time quarterbacks deliver. He hasn't delivered.
So LaShawn McCoy scoreless through the first 5 weeks of the season. Who would have thought that after scoring 14 touchdowns a season ago? But now if you look on the defensive side of things, a Bills defense that was so strong those first 4 weeks, still really good in week 5.
Right.
Held the Bengals to 20 points, 3 turnovers. So now their takeaway giveaway, plus minus is through the roof, one of the best in the NFL. And yet there was still slight cause for concern. A.J. Green, the Bengals receiver, took the rookie Trey White to school a couple of times. What were your reactions and your takeaways from that side?
Yeah, well, I'm not that worried that Tre'Davious White, like other corners, some Pro Bowler veterans, have had problems with one of the great receivers in the game. I want him to handle it a little better. I got the impression, just the way he bolted out of the locker room before any of us could get in there and ask him questions about those plays. You don't have to do that. He'd shown a veteran presence or more than his years through the first 4 games. So definitely want him to kind of get refocused. I understand it's emotional, but he's got to get over it. What I was impressed with, actually, was how they were surviving the injuries. And they started out without E.J. Gaines. Of course, he had that groin injury. Then Leonard Johnson leaves the game with a hamstring injury. They're down to Greg Mabin coming in, another rookie. In all, because between the injuries that occurred and lineup changes, they had 5 rookies on the field total. And then on defense, you had Matt Milano for Ramon Humber at linebacker. And actually, I thought Matt did a very solid job in helping that defense slow down the run. The Bengals averaged only 2.4 yards a game rushing. Again, they didn't have to run the ball effectively because they did have Andy Dalton and A.J. Green making those big plays. But still, they got those turnovers. They kept him out of the end zone for the most part. This was the kind of defensive effort that you can win with. Jonah, I think this continues to be something upon which the Bills can build. And
coming out of the bye week, the Bills take on the Tampa Bay Bucks, and they got another one of the top receivers in the league in Mike Evans. So that's 3 in 3 games for the Bills.
Sean Jackson's not bad either.
Yeah, he's not bad. 3 of the top 5 receivers in the NFL facing the Bills in 3 straight weeks. That's a lot to handle. But I wanted to get your thoughts on this real quick before we go. Vlad Dukas starting in place of John Miller. Cordy Glenn not playing.
Yeah.
With Deion Dawkins getting the start at left tackle. Marcel Darius didn't start. Adolphus Washington got the nod to start the game on the defensive line. What do you make of these alterations to the starting lineup that we thought there's no way you're going to bench Marcel Darius in his huge contract, and yet they do?
It has the feel of marginalization. I mean, it just sounds like they are marginalizing some of those big contract players, especially. You mentioned Marcel Darius, although he did get a sack in the game, but he's out of the starting lineup and played only 22 snaps. You have Cordy Glenn not starting, and Deion Dawkins, the rookie, the guy that this regime picked and they plan to have as their long-term future on that line, perhaps beginning this year. So, and then you mentioned Vlad Dukas, another player who was really more Juan Castillo's pick. The O-line coach brought him in, had him in Baltimore, and has him there instead of John Miller. The feelings of this coaching staff, the opinions of the personnel people it's not even that they have to say it. They're doing it with actions by putting these different faces in the lineup. I think, by and large, keep an eye on where this offensive line is headed, Jonah, because I've written this and I've said it over and over again. I think there's still a gap, a learning curve gap between what these linemen are comfortable with doing, by and large, and I'm talking to veterans like Eric Wood, Richie Incognito especially, and what they're being asked to do in this system that Rick Dennison, the offensive coordinator, has put in place, this wide zone deal, which is lateral movement. And what was happening in that lateral movement against the Bengals were getting penetration, getting into the Bills' backfield and making plays. And LaShawn McCoy being stopped many times before he could even start. That was a great source of frustration, I know, for those offensive linemen. So this will just be something to keep an eye on as the Bills continue to struggle in the run game. Now, with the sacks piling up, you got a coaching staff that's very aware that they've got to do something to try to get some fixes here.
It's clear Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane, since day one, they prefer their own guys and they don't care what anybody else thinks of the previous. That's right.
Putting their stamp on it.
And it's worth noting, I actually had a source tell me that as of Tuesday morning, Bill Scout over in Oregon taking a look at offensive linemen. Maybe
Not a shock.
Maybe you want some athletic offensive guys to run that stretch scheme.
Yeah.
Vic Carucci, the Buffalo News. I'm Jonah Vic of Channel 2 Sports. Thanks for watching on WGRZ.com.